Chase, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, today's theme song has a lot of clapping. Let's listen to the Showrunner Show. The Showrunner Show. Let's listen to the Showrunner Show. The Showrunner Show. Yeah!
That's pretty good.
Nice.
I like the clapping.
I'll add to the
Thanks,
clapping.
thanks.
We haven't done clapping before. That's wonderful.
Oh, is that true? Oh, that you just opened things up for me. It's going to be like
We didn't know there's instruments.
snapping and clapping from now on.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Showrunner Show, where every week we demystify some aspect of the job of showrunning for anyone who works in TV, who wants to work in TV, or just wants to know how it's all made. I'm Drew Dowdle.
I'm John Eric Dowdle.
And I'm Stacy Shabosky. We're super glad you're here. This is episode 23, which kind of blows my mind.
Yeah.
Good job, fellas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this week we wanted to give you 5 tips for managing overwhelm. When you think of the job of showrunning, you're managing so many things, from scripts to personnel to casting to production and overseeing shooting to editorial. And sometimes it's all happening all at the same time. And the job, just by its nature, is overwhelming. It's literally an impossible job. It's an impossible job to do all the stuff that's expected of you in a day. And so we wanted to just give some tips and, tricks that we've used to, keep ourselves sane in the midst of it.
Yeah, I'd like to add, too, it gets increasingly overwhelming as you go through the season as well. I mean, it's for anyone coming from movies, or if you're, in screenplays, it's one thing to kind of have notes on one static, screenplay. And similar in TV, when you're working on the pilot, you have notes on one episode, but you can, flash forward to episode 6, you're still doing notes on episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're casting episodes 1 and 2. You're, doing tone meetings for 5 and 6. I mean, it just starts to stack upon each other, in an increasing way throughout the entire season. And that, I think in our first season of TV, that was the part that kind of shook me, was just how much it escalates over the course of the season.
Yeah, and it's kind of unrelenting. It just doesn't, it's not like, okay, now that you're done with episode 6, why don't you take a month off and just get some sleep, eat healthy. You know what I mean? It's Drew and I, a couple, in these last couple of years, we were, lucky enough to get to run 2 shows at the same time. And we were directing. We directed all the episodes of Waco Aftermath. So, showrunning 2 shows, and there was mornings when I get up at 3:30 in the morning and do rewrites on 7 different episodes. It was overwhelming, and it just didn't stop for a year and a half. And I mean, I'm so grateful for, the chance to do that. And we really had to rethink the way we systemize things a bit better. And part of this show is just wanting to explore different ways of doing things so that, we can take that, as we scale even beyond too, hopefully.
We visited you, and Waco Aftermath was in Santa Fe, and the kids and I did not go. For the first time ever, we didn't do the set as a family. We'd always travel together as a family. But this, the kids were getting old enough that John, went. Drew was there too, but my family didn't go. John was there by himself, and we visited. And you got yourself an aspirational Peloton for all the. John had this Peloton in the kitchen that was there, just to get in all those workouts to manage your stress, and not just, as we would visit, it was just gathering this layer of dust. But the Starbucks bags, there was a mountain of empty coffee bags, a dusty Peloton.
Let's be real, though. Aren't all Pelotons aspirational Pelotons?
This episode not brought to you by Peloton.
Yeah. You know what I do? I use the Peloton now. I take my laptop and I open it up to whatever comp TV show I'm supposed to be watching, because I'm always so behind on watching TV. So I stick it against the Peloton and I just watch whatever true crime, whatever TV show I'm supposed to catch up on while I do my ride. It's fun.
We bought a house, and the sunroom was the best room in the whole house, and it was the previous owner just had a Peloton in there, and that was the only thing. The whole room was dedicated to the Peloton. And when I finally met them, I'm like, wow, you guys are serious about that Peloton, huh? And they're like, yeah, it's been used twice. 4-season porch is a Peloton furniture.
Yeah, but that in Santa Fe, the Peloton I got was I maybe used it 6-7 times, but it was like,
Okay.
I mean, on the weekends, it was like, there was just so much work. I literally, the weekend would come, I'd take the break from directing, literally wouldn't leave I maybe went out and grabbed a coffee across the street once all weekend, and everything was like just Uber Eating stuff in, and just like trying to like, I don't know, just trying.
I remember
to,
I kept
to
telling you, I
get
was like,
through it.
honey, I looked at Google Maps. The Folk Art Museum is just 5 minutes away. Why don't you pop over to the Folk Art Museum? You were like, I'm going to kill you. Stop suggesting that I go see the carved puppets. I'm never going to leave my house. So I think we should talk about jumping back into overwhelm and stress. I think we should dig into the fact that like it's emotional, it's mental because you're trying to spin all those things, and it's physical.
Yeah.
Because I compare, I'm talking about John, not Drew here because John's my husband. I see like when you're not on a show, like currently you're not running a show that's in production. So you're working out 90 minutes a day, eating vegan, healthy as can be, just like so healthy, doing the saunas and stuff. And then when production begins, it's just coffee and 5 hours of sleep and PAs bringing around an endless parade of brownie bites. Like,
I mean,
Whatever it takes.
It is so physically taxing. Like, I mean, like you're saying, you can come into it in really good place and everything. And like on Waco, I remember, the medic having to come to my trailer and put, 3 bags of fluid in me and an IV. And like, you get to that place, and not to be dramatic about it, but it's on every show, at some point during the show, I get to that point of like almost complete physical breakdown. And
damn.
And every show I go into being like, okay, I'm going to really manage that and make sure I do it differently. And it's almost, it's not unavoidable, but hopefully we can give some tips to help,
Smart.
help head that off, because it really is so physically exhausting.
It's actually kind of a fun game I'd like to play as the onset, the covering writer. I like watching the director start on day one, just fresh as a daisy, often good looking. Directors are often good looking. And by their last day, we're always talking about like an eye patch and like all sorts of carpal tunnel stuff. And they got they're just literally
knee
hobbling.
brace. They all have knee brace, like.
I was the one with the eye patch. I remember that.
Drew,
I'm
the eye patch.
I had a sty swell up like half of my face while I was directing. It's like, and when you're directing, you just can't, tap out for the day, no matter what's going on.
You just got to keep going. John, I remember you a couple different times just barfing all throughout the day and being like, well, too bad.
I did that on Waco. I did too. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's right. You did that. I did that on No Escape. Like, remember I had the flu, or like we were shooting in Thailand.
Nobody cares that you got the flu. It costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
You stay allowed to go barf, come back, keep directing.
I was like watching the monitors, and I'd walk away, like projectile vomit, and then come back to the monitors. And actually, that's the one time I was like, Drew, like, I can't do it. And Drew's like, dude, I gotcha. And so Drew and the cinematographer finished the day, because it was boat work.
It was
so
boat work, of course.
sick.
Yeah, it's like cameras on a boat.
Yeah.
Yikes.
I was like,
yikes.
it was like when it was time to go on the boat, I was like, I don't know what to do. And Drew's like, I got you. And
So physically, what are some tweaks you've made through the years? What tweaks are you planning to like? Let's get practical.
I wanted to come up with like kind of 5 ideas, or, and maybe we can have more, but like 5 things, like sort of a list of things you can try if you're like, overwhelmed, like they need a rewrite of the scene right now and they're about to shoot it. And you have to, like, what are the things you can do? And I would say, I would put top of the list, admit you don't know. Like, there's moments, I learned this trick as a director, actually, not as a showrunner, but, early on in my directing, I always felt like I had to know everything, and I had to have the plan. And when someone asked a question, I had to know and answer. Even if I wasn't sure, I'd answer with authority, And then one day a scene wasn't working, and I couldn't diagnose it. And I went on set and I was like, something's not working. I can't figure out what it is. Like, who has an idea? And it created this space where everyone just, the actors started like, oh, what if instead of crossing over here, if I cross over, like, what if I did this? Would that help? And then the other actor is like, oh, and I could counter with this. And And suddenly this thing happened that because I didn't know, it sort of just fixed itself. You know what I mean? And everyone felt more engaged and more lit up by that. And I'll say in Waco Aftermath, I had there was a moment where I tried everything I could think of. Like I got up super early and I had note cards on the board and I was like doing my like beautiful mind note card thing. And I was just about to lose it. And then Drew called and he's like, hey, I had an idea. Like, you know what would tie all this together is like this. And it was just like the simple solution that I would have never in my life seen. And I, Drew, like truly single-handedly saved the show that day. Like it would have fallen apart at that point, and I would have never gotten there, on my own. And Drew and I are always collaborative, but it's, sometimes one of us is running with this while the other person's directing, or there's often, we often have one person running point on any given thing at a moment.
That's kind of more in the creative and the writing side. And I think sometimes on set, when something's just not working, whether it's the blocking, whether it's the, like you're saying, kind of open it up, like, I don't know why this isn't working, I need help. And you might get too many opinions in that scenario too, but you'll know, like, who is it on that set that you really trust creatively? Is it your cinematographer? Is it your lead actor? Is it, your AD? There'll be that voice that, hopefully you've been shooting for a little bit and you've kind of come to really trust someone and like really lean on that person, and really ask that person's opinion when you need it. Cause it's amazing. Sometimes it just needs to be someone else's input at that moment that can really dislodge a moment.
I like to say, and I really feel that this is very true, is like the more experienced I get, the less I do and the better everything goes.
Yeah.
And I've learned to, instead of telling everyone, trying to tell everyone everything, you know what I mean? I've learned to approach the craft of showrunning and directing as more like a therapist, more like going up to an actor after a take and saying like, how did you feel that went? Instead of being like, do it more mad or whatever. Like, how did you feel that went? How did that feel to you? Like, what if we try that, I take a much gentler approach with that stuff. And I'm trying, as I get more experience on the showrunning side to be more that way also, is to like be less like, okay, I stayed up and I figured out what we need to do, and more like just asking the questions and bringing more people in and being less certain and embracing the being less certain. And I find that brings me a lot of peace and it actually goes much better. Like I did a fraction, season 2 of Joe Pickett, I did a fraction of the work for season 2 that I did in season 1. And I would say the results were much, I love season 2. I feel like season 2, I mean, I love both seasons, but I feel like season 2 was really special. And that was in large part because myself and Drew, I feel like both of us like really let it evolve it by itself more.
From the outside, from the non-showrunner point of view, I would think that, like a showrunner who's, quote, got all the answers, who's very controlling, who does the whole, like, there is no way any of you is going to come up with an idea that I haven't already come up with because I've thought about this whole thing. Like, that's just another way of saying huge ego, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool to get rid of that and to invite other people who also are extremely creative. Your writers in the room, your cinematographers, all your camera people, even your producers, really, like a Linda Ambry type of very creative line producer.
Yeah.
They're very creative. They also have chosen to go into this weird field and make great personal sacrifices in order to be creative. So it's probably quite fun for them to be invited into, what do you think? I don't have any ideas here. Like, I don't know what to do. What do you suggest?
Yeah, I mean, everybody brings such a different background of experiences to a problem, and it just, we actually, have heard that comment before of that, like, I've been working on this for a few years and I've thought of everything and there's no way that, anyone here will ever think of anything that I haven't already thought of. And like, that is a bold statement. And it's, it seems very limiting too, as far as, what could fall in your lap. I mean, we're so lucky over the years of how many great ideas and how many great tweaks, have just kind of fallen in our laps by the people, the very smart, talented people around us. And I think you're crazy not to use that as much as you can. Yeah.
But the people offering up those tweaks, I would guess that half of them are probably just very opinionated people who can't help but talk. Yeah. But I bet half of them, before they offered up that suggestion, I bet their hearts were pounding. I bet they were like, today's the day. Today's the day I'm going to suggest we get B-roll in that gully,
Yeah. It's true. Yeah. And you have to filter through a lot of it too. But, it's a fine line. You definitely don't want to make it, everybody give me your opinion 100, anytime you have a thought, like that can be paralyzing too. So it's definitely a fine line, but I think
it can't be a free for all.
It can't be a free for all.
Can't be free. Yeah. It's like that kind of film school. Like everyone just throw out every idea that comes into your head, like that film school thing doesn't work once you have, 100 people. But, I at the end of season 2 of Pickett, our location manager, Luke, was like, hey, I just read the most recent script and I have an idea. And he pitched an idea over email. It was totally respectful, super nice. He'd never, thrown out any idea. It was, he's like, you can tell me, just, go away, but I just want to mention I saw this thing and this opportunity. And I loved it. It was a great idea. And we ended up incorporating. Yeah, we ended up incorporating it. And over the course of rewrites, it shifted, but it was it was one of those great ideas come from all over if you're open to them and if you have a creative space where people know, there's some degree of hierarchy on set and stuff, but if it's not like rigid in that way where people feel like you're a human being who wants to hear the best idea, you know what I mean? And if they, I'm sure Luke, thought twice before, you know what I mean? I'm sure he was one of those people who was like, I have this idea. It's so good.
Yeah.
I need to share it. And he did.
What's the best way to do it? Should I walk up to him? Should I send an email?
Yeah, it was great. Number 1, admit you don't know. Number two, take a break. I find when I'm stuck on something, one of the best things I can do is take a walk, have a workout, when I'm at my worst, have a snack, but that can be a dangerous, slippery slope. Like do a little writing, have a snack, do a little writing, have a snack. But taking a walk, I often find, and not thinking about the writing, but just step away from it and just observe stuff along the walk. Like I find it centers me and helps my mind sort of sort it out in the background.
And I would add to that too, just sleep. Sleep is so important. I think it's so tempting to stay up really late, working and then get up really early. And, if it's some deadline, there's obviously moments where that's warranted, but to get into the habit of doing that when you're in a marathon, you're not, if you start, sacrificing your sleep like you're in a sprint, that is a dangerous path. And I think you're always better in the morning than you are late at night in terms of creative energy and creative intelligence. Always feels so much more efficient in the morning than staying up late at night.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that and say sleep is more important than prep.
Yeah,
being well rested is more important than knowing all the shots you're going to shoot the next day or exactly what you're going to talk about in the writer's room. Like sleep is more important. Like if you're well rested, you have the agility of mind to manage anything. Whereas you can have, prepare every possibility and be so exhausted by the time you show up to work that you're unable to think quickly on the fly. And that's
what does well rested mean to you guys when you're in production? Like how many hours is well rested? Like, let's not talk about, pre-pro or being in the room or post, but actual, you're turning around scripts, you're in production. How many hours is well rested?
I think it depends on the person. I mean, for me, it's 7, when I was younger, I was less than that, but I find as I get older, I need more and preferably 8, but
okay, good.
Obviously production schedules change over the course of the week even. And sometimes you're, have a 5 a.m. call time at the beginning of the week and a 5 p.m. call time at the end of the week. It can be very hard to, to stay, to get quality sleep over the course of a week, just given how much it's like you have jet lag, every week. You know, it's like
Yeah.
literally taking an international flight once a week and trying to, you know, still get a lot of the good sleep. And it's a real challenge.
I agree. 7 or 8 hours. Like, I mean, can I do 4 or 5 hours? Like I can for a day, but if I string two of those together, then I'm fuzzy. And if my mind's fuzzy, rewrites take longer. You know what I mean? Like when someone has a question for me that takes longer to process it, the days go slower. I get more frustrated and more, I become my own enemy, a lot of the day. I spend a lot of time internally, dealing with my own frustration. And I just, on a normal day, I feel like I have, 5 to 10 frustrations before I'm like, dang it, whereas if I'm really tired, I have maybe 1 or 2, it might be the first thing, might be the drive to set. And I'm like, traffic,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, I think, and yeah, I want to use the, kind of the archetypal story of Archimedes, that story, like the king asked Archimedes, and I think it was ancient Greece to, the king is like, I think this, goldsmith, cheated me, this crown, I don't think it's pure gold, figure out a way to find out. And Archimedes was tearing his hair out, just focused on it day and night, couldn't sleep, couldn't do anything. He was just trying to solve this problem. And his wife is like, Archimedes, go take a break, go have a soak in the tub and just relax. You're working too hard. And he's like, you're right. So he went and he got in the tub, and he realized as his body displaced the water in the tub, he's like, this is the solution. You put a crown in water, and the weight of the crown will displace a certain amount of water according to whether it's pure gold or not. And he solved the problem by taking a break. And I feel like so often it's just like when you're trying to remember someone's name so hard and you can't, and then you walk away and you start doing something else and you're like, oh, that's the person's name. It's kind of that same principle. Like sometimes you just need to disengage and stop struggling, and it'll, a solution will come.
I love that.
Do we talk about MIQ? Have we done that? Most important question? I can't remember if we've talked about that on the podcast or not.
I don't think so.
No.
That's something I really like to do. I don't do it very often, but I do it in the room for special occasions. So MIQ is most important question. And before you go to sleep at night, you can ask yourself, okay, what would I like my subconscious to work on tonight? What kind of problem? And it could be something like, oh, we have to do a big reveal at the end of this episode. We know we have to convey this information, but we don't have a cool way to do that yet. What's a cool, that's I used it once for that. So that's always the example I give. And then, so first you have to get clear on what the question is, get pretty specific, or purposefully vague of something doesn't feel right with what we're doing. What do I need to know? You can keep it like that. And then you go to sleep, and I like to have my phone near me or pad or something near me. And usually around 4 o'clock when I wake up to pee, I've got something, or at least when I wake up in the morning. And it's not necessarily great, but it's usually pretty good. And it's at least something.
That's cool.
And I didn't have to do any work. My unconscious did it for me, which is you got a freebie.
Yeah, just plant the seed before you go to bed. That's really interesting. I like that.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
That is good. Yeah, she does do that. She, I got to say too, in the writer's room, when sometimes the room gets stuck on a point we need a clue, a way to discover this clue that's, relevant to the world we're in, and, and just no one has anything. And, often we'll say okay, tonight, sleep on it. Everyone, try and bring in something tomorrow to pitch on this idea, good or bad. Just bring in something, and often just that alone gets everyone kind of thinking about it, and we're as they are having dinner and going to sleep and putting their kids to bed or whatever. It's working in the background of their mind somewhere. Okay, number 3, consult the room, your producers, the network, your trusted advisors, whoever. Talk to people and be like, maybe the reason you're overwhelmed is you don't have enough people, on your staff. On Pickett season 1, it was essentially Drew and I, and we were doing a bunch of the directing, and we had no other writers on staff during production other than us, and we were still managing a bunch of the scripts, and it was just too much. And there was a point at which, I called the studio and I was like, I'm literally going to go crazy. We need someone else, like we need to hire Stace. We need Stace because Stace wasn't on it at that point. We're like, we need Stacy. Like, you gotta and you had, I think, finished the Waco room at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was doing that
Yeah.
remotely, living in Canada, but on a Zoom room for Waco.
Yeah. So you were doing that, but then once that was over, I was like, we need Stacy. And they're like, I don't know if we have it in the budget. I was like, literally, I'm gonna go insane. Like, it's too much. I just can't be everywhere at once. And Drew's directing, I'm managing all this other stuff, and it's just too much work for us. And the show is going to start to suffer if we don't have somebody who can be there managing, doing rewrites and all that stuff.
And this was the back half of the season, to my point earlier. At this point,
Yeah.
I was directing, you were managing all the edits. So we have, delivering episodes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Right.
So there's rewrites going on, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you're delivering, cuts of 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, that's where it starts the escalation of workload really starts to become unmanageable if you don't have the support.
I forgot
Yeah.
about that whole thing of delivering cuts. Like, by that time, because John and I share a trailer, I'll pop in to I don't know, do something in the trailer, and you're always on a Zoom with an editor.
With an editor, yeah.
Not always, but
Yeah.
hours a day. And it's like, oh yeah, you're not going to be turning around, draft number 75 of that scene that shoots tomorrow
Yeah.
if you're spending 3 hours, in editorial.
And you can pop
I mean,
into
you
a
can,
script
but-
and make some changes kind of, from, your chair on set, or you can kind of do that from wherever. When you're in editorial, you're just locked to your computer for hours on end.
Yes.
And, you are totally out of pocket to do anything else. And
Right.
And that is a real time suck. And and it's really important. I think that the care and attention to the edits at the end of the day is hugely, hugely important. So it's time well spent. But
Yeah. Well, and then we had new directors showing up, and they had notes for their scripts and ideas for how to build, and it was just it was overwhelm. It was pure overwhelm. And then Stace came in, and she spent the time with the directors. She managed the rewrites. And instead of doing the deadlift with rewrites, I would just look at what Stacey had done, maybe tweak things a little here and there. But it was perfect. You know what I mean? It just became what was, 60% of my workload became, 5% of my workload. And just the calculus of that just changed everything, and kept the show at the same quality we set out to do. And so, just sometimes consulting people, if there's a major rewrite the network's asking for, just getting more clarity on what they even mean, so you don't do the same thing twice. You know what I mean? Just consulting people. We actually once had a rewrite on when we did the movie Devil. And we had 50 people in the hall waiting to go do a reshoot on something. And the studio and producer couldn't agree on what the rewrite should be. And so we just kept writing stuff and sending it. And then studio would be like, nope, this isn't it. And then we'd write something else. And then the producer would be like, nope, this isn't it. And we were and there was a point at which I just got totally frozen. I was just frozen in the panic face. I had, my frozen panic face. And, where literally there's 50 people in the hallway waiting to go shoot. And they're like, you almost done? You haven't yet? You have the new pages yet? Where everyone's
And the best
ready?
the best part is you weren't even a credited writer on it.
I know.
That's true.
It's true.
That's true.
But
We were the only ones there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember at that point, I called Stacy's brother, Stephen Chbosky, who's a well-known writer and has been a mentor to us. I called him in a total panic. I was like, I don't know what to do. No one can agree on this. And there's 50 people in the hall. And he just sort of talked okay, just breathe. It's going to be okay. And I just needed somebody who, had been through that in a way. Drew and I, we were still, pretty green. We hadn't been through that, and Steve had, and he's like, okay, so what are they, so like, and just talking it through with him just gave me enough comfort that it helped us, then find our way through that scene.
Number 4, write, quote, the bad version. Everybody uses the same language too. They call it the bad pitch. I'm going to give you the bad pitch. We were just talking about it yesterday, and I'm sure this will come up in the notes thing too. I actually think it's really sweet when people say, here's the bad pitch. And that's a phrase I use all the time. Because I think it's basically just saying, like, don't judge me. Yeah. Like, here's an idea. Because usually, like, half the time when I'm saying this is the bad pitch, I think it's pretty good. Yeah. I think other people feel the same way. But it's just sort of going like, don't judge it. It's not fully fleshed out. I haven't told, but yeah, the bad version or the bad pitch. I took, what was her name? Ellen Sandler. I took a class at, what's that thing in Burbank? It's like the writer's store. I can't remember. It's some nerdy screenplay store. And they had a class with Ellen Sandler, who's a screenwriter, comedy writer. And she printed up, she gave us all little like diplomas and you had to fill in your name. And so it said like Stacy Shabosky. And then in cursive, it's like, has permission to write badly. And you're supposed to take that up on your thing to just be like, not every draft is going to be perfect. Like sometimes you have to poop a turd to polish that turd.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Just to dislodge
beautiful
things.
Analogy.
I think the bad pitch can often, just really kind of dislodge a lot of great ideas around it. Or if it's like, we want to, get to this end, what's the bad version to get there? And then, like you said, to polish that, it's really helpful.
I'll say in episode 10 of Pickett season 2, I know I'm getting in the weeds on this, but we were trying to come up with the climax. This is actually the same thing the location manager pitched an idea for, but the climax, it just wasn't there. And I didn't have it. I didn't know how to find it. You know what I mean? And so I was like, I'll write something. I'll write anything in this spot, and people will give me notes. People have thoughts. This will be flagged as an issue, and everyone will, naturally, like, people start throwing in ideas. And if I just got locked up and was like, I don't know what to do, and just stayed there, like, the overwhelm would build as I refused to deliver something. Just delivering and just keeping things moving.
So like a placeholder. So you kind of wrote a placeholder.
I did my best. Like, I was like, I'll do my best in the next, I always have a sand timer, a 20-minute sand timer. This is actually a good trick.
I love that too. I use that too.
Yeah. I'll be like, I'll give it 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, I have the scene written. Whatever I've written is going out. And then I do it. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Like, I won't base all my self-esteem on this one scene. Like, I'll just
let it, right?
Yeah, I'll let it go through, and people have problems with it. It won't be good, but that's the path to a solution. So yeah, sometimes just allowing the bad version of something, either mentally so you can try and write it, or just even on the paper can really help.
That climax was rewritten so many times that I eventually just stopped reading them. I was like, let me know what it is.
It's funny.
Let me know how this thing ends.
Same thing on season 1, the climax. Yeah, that was something we went over and over and over.
Yeah. It's so hard. It's so hard to wrap up a season.
And then changed it the week, like the day before we shot it, basically.
Totally.
It says so much. The climax is like, what is this tone? Are we going to go violent and nihilistic? Are we going to go, like, what are we going to do? Is this going to be macro? Is it going to be micro? I know you guys are big fans of the micro climax. If you guys had your way, every movie would end with 2 men hitting each other with a rock.
It's like The Revenant. The Revenant climax. Like, that is a perfect micro climax, Oh,
yeah, totally.
2 men in deep snow beating the hell out of each other.
Yeah, there you go. I meant that in a complimentary way.
Yeah.
No, but your climax is like, okay, and the point of this whole season is...
Yeah.
What was the point?
It could be a lot of things.
Did we have a point? Yeah.
Hold your loved ones close? No, that's not it. I don't
know. Number 5, refocus on being of service. I like this one. I think that's really really helpful to kind of take yourself out of yourself for a minute. I think that's always a really helpful exercise. And you could probably speak to this more, John, but I like that idea of like, your problem, what you have is so urgent to you in that moment is, not the most important thing in the world. That's helpful to remember that. It's good perspective.
Yeah, it is. It is. And just the idea of like I feel like there's two kinds of, leaders. There's the, I am the boss and everyone will do, everything I say. And then there's the service leader, the leader who shows up to help, to be the most loyal servant to the project.
Yeah.
And I feel like we try to come at it from more the latter. More the latter on our best days, maybe at our worst days, it's more like, no, but this is what I want, but I feel like when I'll speak for myself, like when I'm at my best, I feel the most of service to the project and to the people working on the project where, sometimes just looking for, like going to set or into the writer's room and being like, okay, who needs a compliment today? Who needs a little like pat on the back and like, hey, you're doing great. Like who needs that from me today? Instead of it all being about me and what I want and what I'm struggling with, what I'm stressed about, like who can I help in the midst of this and stop thinking about myself so much, start thinking about the human beings I work with. And it's surprising sometimes when you come into a day with that mentality, you realize like, oh, this person has like been having like real medical stuff. Do they know if they need time off? Like they can take it, you know what I mean? Like, or whatever it is, like what is the human thing someone needs to hear from you that day? And just focusing on connecting with the human beings around you, I find gets me out of my own neuroses or own, self doubt or anxiety in a way that really nothing else does. Yeah.
When do you guys, is there a practical time that you do that? I know some people are big on greeting people in the morning. I know some people are big on thanking everyone at night. Like when do you, I'm sure there's all sorts of, hey, there's just a moment here. Somebody's doing a setup and I just happen to be standing next to the props guy. I just happen to be standing next to Scripty, whatever. You can connect then. But other than those little unexpected moments where you just have a brief moment to connect with somebody, is there a place or time you guys like to connect?
One of my favorite times on set, I'll speak to, on set, I love showing up early and going from actor to actor and just doing the tour and being like, how you feeling this morning? How things? Like, you feel good with the scenes? Like, you know what I mean? And just go down the list. And inevitably something will come up like, oh, I didn't sleep well and I'm a little stressed about this. It's like, okay, I'll make sure I'm there for that scene or, whatever, sometimes they just need a little pep talk and sometimes just seeing the look in their face on a given day, you can tell some days who's, oh, this is going to be a hard day for this actor, or this is going to be a hard day for this person. Like you can just feel it some days, that some days, an actor shows up like king of the world and some days they show up and you can tell they're, they may have stuff going on in their, real life, or whatever. Like I find morning is a really good time for check-ins, personally.
How about you, Drew?
Yeah, I agree. I like checking in with the cast in the morning. I kind of do the rounds at the beginning and at the end of the day. I think that's a good practice, just generally. When it comes to like this, when I'm feeling overwhelmed and focused on being of service, I find that's, I don't know, something that can happen anytime during the day. Just whatever the crazy urgency is in your brain at that moment, just to kind of do something that doesn't serve that urgency at all for a little period of time to kind of remind yourself that it may not be as urgent as you think. It may not be quite as pressing as it seems, and you're really, in service to the show. I think that's one thing too. I think all of us have that, I need to fix this thing. I need to find the solution. I need to come up with this great idea that's going to save the day. And, we're all basically in service to the same greater thing. It's bigger than that day. It's bigger than that scene. It's bigger than that line of dialogue. It's this kind of living, breathing organism that we're all serving at the end of the day. And whatever the solution is to that could come from anywhere. And I like that Archimedes story so much. It's like the taking a break and doing something that doesn't seem to be serving that end at all could be where the solution comes from. It often doesn't come from banging your head against a wall saying, I need to figure this out right now. That it doesn't usually come from that.
That Archimedes thing, I was like, wait, what? But if it was gold-plated brass, would it not float? Like I found myself going, like, did he know the weights of all the different alloys?
Apparently, gold is heavier than other metals.
Really?
Therefore, it displaces in a way. And he realized in water that weight equals water displacement, not volume. It's weight equals volume displacement.
Interesting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I
So
didn't
if
either.
you had a little nugget of something real heavy, God, science is so confusing, isn't it? Every time I talk about it, I feel like a dumb child. So if you had a little pea-sized thing of something incredibly heavy and you put it in the tub, it would go.
Apparently.
That makes that's magic.
No, it's magic. It's like when you drop a heavy thing and a light thing off, the
And they
Tower
fall
of
the same rate.
Babel. Like,
It still doesn't make sense.
I don't believe it. I still don't believe
I
it.
still don't believe it either. Yeah.
Nope, that's dark magic.
The AI is listening to us. They're like, what fools will take over?
It's so
Rule
easy.
the world. It's so easy.
They don't know anything. In summary, when you're facing overwhelm, you can try one of these 5 things. Admit you don't know, take a break, consult the room, your producer's network, a trusted advisor. You can write the bad version of the scene or refocus on being of service.
All of those are so much healthier than going out with your cast at night and drinking for 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
The opposite side of that is go have 12 drinks with your cast and sleep for 3 hours and
Wake
hope
up
for
and
the
do
best.
it again. That's a young man's solution.
Like, take a break. Check.
All right. If you like our show, would you please consider taking a minute to subscribe and rate us highly wherever you get your podcasts, and please tell a friend about us. That all really helps us to find our audience. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all.